We're going to talk about call taking and management today. Specifically, we know that there is, I'm going to make the assumption that the people that are participating are at least somewhat familiar with ServiceDesk. So obviously, there's a lot of information that goes into ServiceDesk, starting with the direct consumer and warranty requests, the inventory and warranty part data, and then everything else that you need to manage what's going on in the day. And that's a lot of stuff that goes straight into ServiceDesk. It's a lot to talk about. Glade made this broad call taking and call management. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a lot more than that can be discussed in an hour, even from a bird's eye pie in the sky viewpoint. It's still just a super gigantic amount of information. So what I'm going to try to talk about today is call taking and how to get information into ServiceDesk. So we're going to start with how do you as an individual put that information into the service system? And then second, how can that be more automated and more easily input? And then we're going to talk about call management. But call management, again, is super broad. It goes from the very beginning of getting the job all the way through to putting the job to bed as far as getting all your parts squared away and your claims filed and all that stuff, which again is a whole lot. So today we're just going to talk mostly about routing and how to be more efficient in your routing. We're going to look into... It looks like, click on Q. Oh, okay. So you guys can ask me questions. I'm going to try to leave some time for questions at the end. So if you've got something that's like super like urgent, by all means, pop it up. Otherwise, I'm going to try to do it at the end. Hopefully that'll make this flow a little bit better and we can make sure that we get through it. So anyway, so we're going to talk about the routing and how to make that more efficient. That's my plan today anyway. Okay. So call taking. So in ServiceDesk, we have what's called a call sheet record. There's 4 on a screen, and this is the starting point for all work requests in ServiceDesk. It is a communication tool within the system that is both internal, but also for system alerts and dispatch requests from other entities. This is a single unlimited file that's accessible to anybody in your office that has access to ServiceDesk. So the cool thing about this call sheet record is that I can put notes in there that says, hey, so-and-so, you need to call this vendor. When you get dispatches and job requests, that information goes in and it's a single file. So if somebody calls back to schedule an appointment and I'm not available, my coworker can see that call sheet, or they can take a message and flip that call sheet to me. So the call sheets are a really great tool for communicating a plethora of information. Moving through them, again, is super easy. You just page up, page down, moves through the file. You can bounce back and forth between the ones that specifically belong to you. And then there's, of course, the whack-a-mole scenario that Glade always describes about how you can have all this stuff get marked off your to-do list and have this great sense of accomplishment when you clear out your call sheets for the days. The parts of a call sheet are up here at the top. You have your paying party. That's where you're going to put their name, address, phone number, etc. The second situation down here is the service location. If your paying party and your service location are the same, then the information is just going to go up here in this blue area. If it's a warranty or landlord situation, then whoever's paying goes up here in the top, and wherever the item is that you're servicing goes in the bottom. It's real simple right here to put in your machine make and information, and then in the green section, you've got the problem request from the customer. Then over here on the right, you've got the origination. So this tells you when and where the call sheet came from. And this is really important when you start using automation. You're going to want to know who made this call sheet and when. That plays into your performance metrics. The active desk, again, this is where you're going to see who's responsible for this particular call sheet. So if you're somebody who comes in the morning and you take all the messages off the phone and all the emails and you put all that information into ServiceDesk, then you're going to click on this Another's and you're going to distribute this information out to the other people in your office. Status lets you know whether or not this is something that we're actively working on, or if it's something that we are hibernating or snoozing until we get more information. The information that goes into a call sheet is basically what you see here. It's customer name, address, phone number. Hopefully you've got a model and serial number and a purchase date, and then a brief description of what's going wrong. As with all database systems, ServiceDesk is garbage in, garbage out. So you always want to be careful about how you're putting information into the system. Ideally, you're going to use all caps for customer information. When you put in a customer's name, you're going to want to do last name, comma, space, first name. You're not going to want to run that all together in one word. You're going to want to make sure that you've got a comma and a space. You don't need to enter dashes for phone numbers because ServiceDesk will straight stick that in there for you. For apartments or unit numbers, you want to put information in as 234-A Main Street, not 234 Main Street, comma, apartment A, and that's for your database lookup. And then there's no punctuation in ServiceDesk databases, the ones that we provide for you anyway. So if you enter any punctuation, it'll stop the search of the automatic drop-down lists, which we're going to talk about in here in just a second. So you want to make sure that you're typing east all out, or you're just doing E and then space. You don't want to put in any punctuation there. So these are these drop-down lists. What you see right here on the right-hand side is what a drop-down list looks for. This is an as you type character by character match. So as you can see, I'm typing BED and I get a match for Bedford Drive and Bedford Lane. When I get over here to this part of the field, if I were to type the L, then the Bedford Drive will no longer match, so that'll drop off. And this is really helpful because you can search in multiple fields for prior jobs. You can search by name, address, phone, or email. So depending on what you feel is the most reliable way to look up a customer when they call, you have a lot of different ways to do that. I think most of us probably these days are mobile phones. I know I've had my particular phone number for at least, 15 years or so. So anything that's associated with my phone number would be consistent regardless of the multiple places that I've lived. The other thing to note here is that each record is historical. ServiceDesk doesn't have a central master database that you have to keep updated. So that makes it really easy. You don't have to, if a customer calls in and they're like, oh, hey, by the way, I moved, you don't have to stop what you're doing and go to their file record and update their address and then go back to where you're going to go ahead and enter their service request. You just do it right here in a call sheet on the fly. Once you enter an address here from this drop-down list, you're going to get what's called a grid coordinate, which in this particular example is this 952A1. And that is a reference to a MacBook, which is super old and dated. But this grid coordinate is what ServiceDesk uses to display your jobs on the custom dispatch map, which was made specifically for you. Everybody's map is going to look different based on your particular area, how much area you cover, and whatnot. Excuse me. So when it displays here, you're going to see the houses here. But then you got, well, what if my street isn't in the drop down? You've got some options. You can do just a regular insertion, or you can do a zip code insertion. You can just click on the map and be like, well, I want this house to be right here. So those are all manual ways to do it. But now we have some more automation. So we're going to talk about some of these like automated ways that you can do some of the stuff. So right now, earlier we added an option for you to either use the standard insertion or you can use Google Maps insertion. And the Google insertion, if you check this box in your ServiceDesk screen for Google, excuse me, you're going to get a warning that's going to say, hey, there's a small fee involved in doing this. And basically that's because you're bypassing Google Ads. But it functions just like the autocomplete in Google. So you can type in 231 Bedford Lane, and as you type, Google will look for all the Bedford lanes, and it'll make the suggestion for the one closest to you. So this is great and handy, especially if you're looking at doing something outside of what your normal service desk territory is, or maybe if you're considering branching out into a neighboring area and you're like, hey, I want to see how this would work out before we go to the trouble and cost and added fees of expanding our service desk dispatch map. Let's see if it's worthwhile to go to this particular area. So this Google's insertion can be handy for something like that. And that makes it a little bit more automated. Alternatively, from time to time, we will update your street desk or your street list for you. However, one caveat to that is that just like when you're in Google and you're typing in an address, you can pick the wrong one or you can pick the wrong iteration. So if there's no specific match, the user can go ahead and choose one that maybe isn't accurate. And so the way to work around that is this gold quality address verification that we introduced. And so this is stronger protection against stuff being entered incorrectly. And it also allows you to overcome the hurdle in ServiceDesk where you've got our information comes from the Census Bureau and it's updated not very frequently. Obviously, we only do a census every 10 years. And so that information is not updated super frequently. But as soon as there is new information available, you as a ServiceDesk subscriber have access to have your street lists updated. But in the meantime, you might have a new development go into your area, or there might be just a huge amount of new houses. And you want to go ahead and get that information into your ServiceDesk street list, and it's you want to make sure that it's pinpointed to the right place. So by using this address verification service, ServiceDesk will actually queue, or it'll query Google, and it'll get the lat long information, the latitude and longitude information for that particular address, which is what ServiceDesk uses in your underlying street data to tie an address to the map. So it'll query that, it'll get that information, and it'll tell you where exactly on your dispatch map that particular new address should show up. So it's handy. It makes your map a lot more accurate for these new areas. But more importantly, this address verification is what you're going to use down the road for better dispatching automation. So if this is something you're interested in, you want to go into your settings form and turn on this address verification. There is a super small fee that is included in that. And Justin, I'll have to follow up on that for you. In the meantime, though, if you're getting this message right here that says the address is outside of your service territory, but that you know that it's in your service territory, then there's a good chance that we have not updated your map file for you yet to include the new data that is required for this feature to work. So reach out to tech support so we can add the little line of code in your map file that makes this work. The other thing that I'm just going to touch on here briefly is this telephone number validation. If you type a phone number, it's really hard to get back in touch with the customer. You've got to wait for the customer to reach back out to you, and that's poor customer service. So if this is a concern for you, it comes back and lets you know whether or not it's a mobile number or a VoIP number or a landline, so you know whether or not you can use it for any of the text confirmations that we offer. So that's cool. The other thing to note here too is that these can be ad hoc or on demand or automated. So you can turn it on automated and ServiceDesk will do a check every single time you enter a phone number or an address, or you can turn it on ad hoc and your users can trigger a check when they go into here. All right. The next thing that you're going to put into a call sheet that is really important is the model and serial number information, or the unit info sheet. So each unit info sheet in ServiceDesk has a serial number, and the serial number has to be unique. ServiceDesk doesn't allow repeat serial numbers. And the reason for that is so that you can link that particular machine to multiple jobs. That's the piece of information that ties them together. It's not my address. It's not my phone number. It's that particular serial number, which allows for me to sell that machine or for somebody else to move into my house, and for you guys to be able to keep track of the work that was done on that particular machine based on its serial number, which is super helpful and makes ServiceDesk more robust. But on top of that, we also have this model lookup. And this is a powerful tool that you can use at multiple contexts throughout the processing of a job. In this case, when we're just putting the information into the call sheet, you might want to check what the manufacturer date is to see whether or not it's still in warranty, or you might want to plug in with Service Bench to find out about entitlement and service history. So there's multiple places that you can look up model information. And then later on, when your technicians are actually at the house, they can do inquiries about parts. If you're doing triaging, you can do inquiries about what are frequently made repairs about this stuff. So those are all options here in this model lookup. So we've gone from a manual entry to something that's a little bit more automated and a little bit more helpful. All right. So let's add some additional automation to this. So how can we get the information from the customer? How do you turn on the Google Map lookup? You're going to be in when you open ServiceDesk and you're looking at the call sheets in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little box that says for street address drop-down list. Or drop-down use, excuse me. And there's a green, it says standard, and then underneath it, it says Google, and it's in orange, and you can check either of those boxes. The default would be the standard. You're welcome, Donna. All right, so the dispatch link utility. So I'm got a customer on the phone, I'm taking the information, I'm manually typing it into ServiceDesk. That takes a lot of time. So how can we make that faster? With the use of the dispatch link utilities, you can directly integrate with Samsung, Dispatch.me, LG, ServiceBench, ServiceLive, and ServicePower. So those are direct integrations where there's not only a downloading of information, but also an uploading of information. And that has to do with your zone planner and your availability. So especially with like ServiceBench, for example, it is a two-way communication. Your service desk in the background uploads your availability to ServiceBench and lets them know job statuses and on all the information that you're required to submit for to maintain your eligibility to do work with them. And then you can also download the dispatches directly into ServiceDesk, and that'll provide you usually with that's going to be not only hopefully your model and your serial number, it may also have appointment preferences, and it's going to have authorizations. So all that kind of information in the background is all included when you're using those dispatch link utilities. So those are super powerful set of tools that you can utilize that's really going to automate the reception of any kind of third-party warranty information. The other thing that you can do is through the email dispatch receiver, we can integrate with a variety of email dispatches. So if you have companies that are sending you Warrantech, I think maybe still any one of those ones that are sending you email dispatches where you have to physically read the email and type it into the system, ServiceDesk has the capability through the email dispatch receiver to parse those emails and plug that information directly into ServiceDesk as well. And that can even be used with like a phone automation service. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of power in those particular tools for getting the information into ServiceDesk. So now we have basically the information in ServiceDesk. What do we do with it from here? So now we're going to talk about call management and routing. So we talked about the dispatch map briefly. Again, everybody's dispatch map is different. And when you're looking at the dispatch map, you can visually see jobs on a map one day at a time. page up to the next day, page down to the previous day. So you can page up and down, but you're only looking at one day at a time and the jobs, how they fit on that particular day. You can drag and drop to create your routes. You can optimize your route via MapPoint or Google. You can auto insert timeframes based on your routing. And of course, there's protections against reassigning the job from the technician that you wanted to have it. So there's a lot of robust tools that are within the dispatch map all by itself without any kind of added supplemental information. However, there are tools there that can make it better. Like for example, this is how you can do that optimized routing via MapPoint or Google. Now, MapPoint is no longer available as a product. You can't buy it anymore if you don't already have it, and Microsoft is no longer supporting it. But if you still have MapPoint, you can use MapPoint to reroute your jobs. And here's an example of how this works. So you can see this upper schedule. Bill, we're getting there, Bill. So right now what we're looking at is we're optimizing by geographic, right? So we're just looking at geography and how does it make sense to drive this particular route. Once you have that all planned out, then you can use ServiceDesk to optimize these timeframes. So right now you can see that there's all these little exclamation points, and these little exclamation points mean all day appointments. And most customers aren't going to be too happy if you only give them an all-day appointment. They would like a much smaller window for when your technician is going to show up. So using tools that are already within ServiceDesk, no added cost to you, you can figure out your route, and then you can create these timeframes. But we probably want tools within ServiceDesk to help us be even more efficient and not have to literally look at the dispatch map and the calendar and every single job to figure out where it should go. So the next tool that we would want to implement is the zone scheduler. So ServiceDesk and historically, a zone is a geographic area. So we use zip codes to create zones. And we can manage how many jobs can be done in a particular zip code by day and by time. So you can basically go in and we can be like, okay, zone 1, we're going to service zone 1 on Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays. And we're going to allocate so many slots for AM and PM and all day. And all together, ServiceDesk is going to take that information and figure out how many jobs you guys can handle in a particular zone. And then of course, then we'll look at the giant bucket of zones, and those are your jobs. Now, the only thing is that's not always how things work in the real world, because sometimes we want a technician assigned to a zone or whatever. So we still need to do some manual stuff, but having the zones at least helps us narrow it down a little bit so that if you have an area that is super busy, you can say, okay, well, this is zone 1 and I've got a max capacity of 30 jobs. I'm going to put 20 jobs over there. And on zone 2, I'm going to put 10 jobs. And that way I'm keeping most of my technicians geographically over here. And if I have to have my other technicians over here, it's not so many guys, and maybe just one guy can handle the 10 jobs. So in order to help facilitate managing that a little bit more efficiently, we created what is called flowing pipes. So flowing pipes allows you to take burden from one zone and flow it and cover it, so to speak, with another capacity from another zone. So in other words, my zone 1 over here has 20 jobs and I have 3 more requests come in. If I don't have the capacity to flow back and forth, then I'm going to potentially overbook zone 1. So I'll have 23 jobs there, but maybe I don't fill zone 2 up at all. In the past, people have typically been like, oh, well, I want the work, and there's usually a percentage of amount of people that cancel, so I'm willing to overbook by a little bit. And so you might go ahead and allow yourself to be overbooked. So now you've got 23 jobs over in zone 1, but what if zone 2 fills up all the way too? Now you've got zone 1 and zone 2 that are filled up and a potential to overbook both of them. So what flowing pipes allows you to do is it allows you to take capacity out of zone 2 and flow it into zone 1. So in other words, I'll take the capacity of zone 1 and make it 23, and my capacity in zone 2 will drop down to 7. So overall, I have a total of 30 jobs. My technicians are in my more efficient area, which is zone 1, and I don't have to worry about being overbooked. So that's how the flowing pipes works, is it allows you to flow capacity into the areas where you need it while keeping your overall availability at a certain amount. But again, we talked about this a minute ago, that sometimes geographical areas doesn't always work. Sometimes we really do need to have a zone that is specific to a particular technician. So now we have the capability to assign a technician to multiple zones. So you can not only use the flowing pipes, but we can also say that multiple technicians can work in a zone. And we can also say that a zone is only available for a particular technician. So if you've got an area that is a little pocket, for example, that's all high-end appliances, you only have 2 technicians that are skilled to work in that particular area. And so you create a zone and you assign those 2 technicians to that area, and nobody else will be assigned to that zone. And the way that that semi-automation works is that when you go ahead to go in and schedule in ServiceDesk, ServiceDesk is only going to display the technicians who are associated with that particular zone. So you're not going to accidentally, like if you have a job here that's in zone 3, you're not going to accidentally choose DS in order to go to that particular job. Only RW is allowed to go to that particular job, because we've designated that not only is our zone a geographical area, but we've also specified which technicians belong to which particular zones. All right, the next new feature that adds an extra layer of flexibility and support is the day planner. So the dispatch map, again, going back to that specific feature, only allows you to look at one day at a time. You've got your technicians up in one corner or another, and so sometimes it's hard to get a good visual of what exactly does my schedule look like for the next amount of time. So we've now implemented the day planner. With the day planner, you can look at all your technicians' jobs for a week, and they're all lined out in order of how they're scheduled. And it may not be super easy to see on here, but if you look, the space between Skywalker and this SS Tambo job is really tiny. There's barely any indent between the first job and the second job down here on Matthew Tech. And the reason for that is because both of those jobs have a 7 o'clock starting window. So there's just this teeny tiny visual indentation. Whereas then you have this Connex job that has a 10 o'clock starting window. And so there's a big gap between it and the next one, or a big indent, excuse me. And so visually, I can look at this particular display, and I can see where I potentially have room for new jobs, where I have holes, where I can schedule somebody. So this is an alternative view. The day planner is an alternative view for you to be able to schedule and route your jobs. And then there's links from here. Obviously, I can click on this name and it'll take me to the job record. I can right click on it and it'll take me to the scheduling interface. So the day planner is a nice little handy alternative way for you guys to be managing your routes. But let's add some further automation, and how can we make this even better and easier? So this is what we call the graph hopper. So this is whole roster optimization. So with the graph hopper, there's several different parts of this feature that you can implement. Now, when we talked about that address verification, the gold standard address verification, that is optional unless you want to use Grasshopper. If you want to use Grasshopper to optimize your routes, you're going to have to turn that on, and you're going to want to set it to automatic. And the reason why is because when we use this Grasshopper, it utilizes the latitude and the longitude of the job, so the specific latitude and longitude of the job, in order to route the technicians most efficiently. So through this part one, you can optimize one technician or all of your technicians, but it's one route at a time. So basically what in this case, you've developed the route and put all the jobs that you want on a particular text roster. But then you're like, okay, now Grasshopper, I want you to optimize how these 10 jobs are scheduled. So this is based on the address verification, which is the job's location. You're going to create an Excel spreadsheet, and there's guidance on how to do this in ServiceDesk, or tech support can help you. And you're basically going to have this little file, and you're going to tell ServiceDesk what time in the morning this technician starts. So what time does his day start? On average, how much time does it take him per location? So how long is he physically at a job? You're going to indicate approximately what time he should take a break and how much time you give him to get from that particular job that he's finished to his break or to the, onto his next job. And then you're going to allow, let's see, the window. So how big are your time frame windows? Do you do 2-hour time frames? Do you do 3-hour time frames? What's that window? And then once you have that in the system, let me see here. Once that's in the system, then ServiceDesk will, let me flip back here, basically do this same thing that it's done here where it's optimized this route, but it's going to do it even more efficiently as far as it's going to not just take the information that you've given ServiceDesk about the route itself. It's also going to factor in this information that you've indicated about each individual technician. So previously, ServiceDesk was optimizing via MapPoint or Google, and it was just saying, hey, here's 10 addresses, put them in an order that makes sense. Now with Grasshopper, it's saying, okay, here's these 10 addresses, put them in an order that makes sense, but with this added logic built into it. After that, the next step would be to add a little bit more information. So now we have what we call skill sets. And with skill sets, you can create a skill set list. You can add up to 9 special skill sets for each technician. And now these should be special and unique. This shouldn't just be like what you would expect a technician to be able to do. This isn't like filtering out which guys can do, I can't even think of an example right now. But basically what you're looking for is you're looking at stuff that's really more specific, that it's very important that particular technicians go to. So like sealed system work, commercial kitchen equipment, HVAC systems, your delivery drivers. And I'm pointing this stuff out specifically because we've got another tool we're going to talk about later that will help manage other stuff that's not super specific like this sealed system work. Oops. Okay. So you're going to create an Excel file, and it's literally just going to be 2 columns. And the first column is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And the next column is going to be a description. And you're going to apply these skills to the job. So when you take the job, when the job comes into the system and you're processing it, you're going to make note whether or not this is something that's HVAC, whether or not it's a delivery. You got to tell ServiceDesk about the job itself, that it requires a special skill set, so that then ServiceDesk can match the technician that has that skill set with the job. Let's see. Oh, so just as a little side note, you can also assign skills to a particular machine type. So we're going to talk about this in a minute, but basically you can also designate particular machines as like a sealed system or HVAC. That way, if this step gets missed here, it's also added to the machine itself. So there's multiple layers of service desk knowing that a particular machine is going to require something special. Once we have this special skill set made, then we can go into the graph hopper, and this is going to be part 2. So that Excel file that we created earlier with that basic information about the technicians, now we're going to add even more information to it. So this is where we can do whole route optimization. So before we were looking at 10 jobs for one technician and we were optimizing just those 10 jobs and how they worked out. Now what we're going to do is we can look at the whole route. So if you have 10 technicians and each technician has 10 jobs, now we're no longer looking at 10 jobs. Now we're looking at 100 jobs, or maybe 1,200 jobs, or 1,200, excuse me, 120. Maybe we're looking at 120 jobs or even more, depending on how many technicians you have. So here you're going to go in and you're going to separate it. You're going to enter into your Excel spreadsheet which day of the week that the technician works. So if he works weekends, you'd include that. If he doesn't work the weekends, you're only going to include what he works. The next column, you're going to indicate what time he starts for each of those days that he works. So let's say on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then he has Thursday, Friday off, and he works Saturday and Sunday, but Saturday and Sunday he works at 9 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't start as early. So you would go ahead and you would indicate that information in here, what days of the week he works and what time he starts on those particular days. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to indicate how many max that he's allowed to work on those particular days. So if your technician works a 10-hour shift or an 8-hour shift, you're going to go ahead and indicate that here. Again, you're going to go ahead and put in whatever time frame you have for his particular break, if he has an assigned one versus him just finding time for it. And then this last column here is where that magic happens, where we're going to go ahead and we're going to indicate which of those special skills this technician has. So if he has no special skills, if he's just a standard technician, then you're going to leave it blank. But if he is a sealed systems technician, or if he's an HVAC guy, or if he's your delivery driver, then you would go ahead and you would indicate here, separated by a comma, what those particular special skills are that he has. And by doing that, now ServiceDesk will take that entire route and optimize it, not only based on drive times, but also based on the technician that has been assigned to the job and, excuse me, I apologize. Let me back up a second. Not only on drive times, but then it'll also figure out which technician should have that job. So in scenario 1, you're still figuring out the routes and which technician is the best technician to give to a particular job to. In the second scenario, you're giving Graph-Hopper the information to be able to deduce which technician it should go ahead and assign to those jobs. It's going to look at, in the settings form, you're going to go ahead and put where the technician starts. It's going to have his home address, and it's going to know whether or not which technician is most optimal to do that particular route. So there's a couple of first questions that comes up. This kind of starts to address Bill's concern with how do you optimize routes by timeframes. So the first one is, what about guaranteed first calls? So for a guaranteed first call, if you're doing the whole tech roster automation, if you have 10 technicians, basically, and you've got, let's say you have 5 customers that you've promised first calls to, you would go ahead and assign those 5 calls as in a definite status to the particular technicians that you think are best suited for those calls. And then Graph-Hopper will take it from there and it'll optimize the rest of the jobs around that particular guaranteed designation. The next The next thing is, okay, well, what time do I put on those guaranteed calls? So if I put 7:30, does that mean my technician is showing up at 7:30, or does that mean the technician is leaving at 7:30? So basically what you're going to do is in that Excel file that you create the technician specs for, you're going to tell ServiceDesk whether or not that technician should be at that home at 7:30 or starting at 7:30. And so depending on what that is, if that technician is supposed to be in that home at 7:30, Grasshopper will look to see where his house is, what the travel time is between his house and that job, and it'll push back his start time far enough to make sure that he's arrived at that house at 7:30. So that's super awesome. The other thing that it does when it does that too is it also looks to see whether or not there's technicians that are available to fit that availability. But that's why it's really the optimal way is to go ahead for those 5 calls that you've guaranteed as first calls, you go ahead and assign those specifically to a technician. Okay, so then, okay, optimization is awesome. I like that I just click a button and it does it, but maybe you don't trust the system that much. Maybe you want a little bit more hands-on. Maybe you want to touch that a little bit more yourself as far as how those stuff is getting optimized and scheduled. The way that we've done that is what we call guided text selection. So all those tools that we created for Grasshopper, that Excel spreadsheet that explains all of those specs specifically for that technician, now those are available to you in ServiceDesk directly for your own scheduling needs. So once you've got that Excel spreadsheet, if you're like, the Grasshopper thing is cool, but I don't trust the automation. I want to do it myself. I want to be able to go in and choose the technicians, but it sure would be handy if ServiceDesk would help filter that information for me. Well, that's what this is for. So here you can see I'm in the schedule list. So F6, I'm looking at this schedule list, and when I click on a job, it'll show me whether or not the technicians fit in the filtering that I've designated. So for example, right here in this red, this one right here is red because this job was designated as a sealed system. So it was a specific skill, and I have no techs available on the day that this job was scheduled that fit those skills. So this big red box here lets me know that I need to schedule this particular job on a different day because I don't have any technicians available on this particular day to complete this job. So that makes it really fantastic for making sure you're not sending technicians out or setting expectations for customers that a job's going to be completed when it's not. So I could go ahead and I could go back into this job and I can see which technicians are available to do this job and on what days. This one over here, this purple, is telling me that these purple technicians are the technicians that I have available that fit this particular zone. So you can choose whether or not you want ServiceDesk to help you pick the right technician for a job based on zone or based on skill set, or both together. So you can choose both zone and skills, and you'll be able to pick a technician from that fits both of those criteria. This little form that you're looking at right here is a summary of all the information that's been assigned specifically for this technician. So if I do a Shift-Alt-Click on the job or on the tech list, it'll show me this particular list. And basically this lets me know that Kenton Awesome is expected to begin at 9 o'clock. He starts from his house. It takes him 45 minutes on average for job. He gets a lunch break at 12:30, which we give him 15 minutes to get from his last job to wherever he's going to take his lunch at. He has a 2-hour appointment window with an alternate for a 1-hour time frame for the first window, which is a little cushion for that first job of the day. That setting's not set. And let's see, this is applicable for Thursday. So it says, does this technician work on this day? True. So Kenton works on Thursday. He's expected to be done with his day by 5 p.m. and he returns back to home. Let's see. Oh, and then down here at the bottom, it says that he's assigned to zone 1 and zone 2. So all this information that's spread across ServiceDesk in different places to help this automation, if you want to see the summary, it's pulled right into here. Page not turning. All you see is a zone scheduler. I don't, Sarah, can you assist with that? I don't know what that's about. Sorry.
Question?
Gina says she can't see the PowerPoint, it looks like. I don't know if that's unique to her. Can everybody else see the tech info summary?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Justin
Okay.
sees
All right.
it.
Well,
It might be frozen on her end. I'll check. Yep.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move on then. Thank you. Okay. So now that we have that, let's look at some more automation. So the next thing that we're going to briefly talk about, because we're getting close to the end of our hour already, is departments. And so the original purpose of departments was bookkeeping. Obviously, you need to keep track of different taxes for different purposes. If you have a service company and you're also sell appliances, then you need to have 2 different departments so you can keep track of those things so you can run your sales reports and whatnot. But now we have this capacity where you can assign a zone to a department. You can also assign a machine type to a department. And the cool thing about this is historically in ServiceDesk, you can only have 1 geographical area per zone. Basically, there's an Excel file, which is, well, what you see here. So you've got column A, your zip codes, and column B, the zone that it belongs to. And ServiceDesk, when it's determining zones, it looks down and it scrolls down this list, and it finds 92676. It looks over and it sees that it's in zone 3, and that's where it stops. It found a result and it doesn't keep looking. So if you put 92676 in zone 3 and in zone 7, ServiceDesk didn't care. It only found it in zone 3, and so it didn't know that you also put it in zone 7. So this was a problem for people who treated zones as technicians instead of zones as geographical areas, because they would be like, well, technician A serves that zip code and so does technician B, and I want both of them to be able to be assigned to that particular zone so that I can dispatch work to them efficiently. So now you can assign technicians to a zone, which solves one part of that problem, but by allowing you to create a zone that is also assigned to a department, you can create overlapping zone lists. So for example, you can do high end and you can do standard. So you can have your high end zone where you have technicians assigned to that particular. So let's say you've got a set of zip codes, a big set of zip codes, and it's all interdispersed between there, whether or not it's standard machines or high-end machines. And you've got 3 technicians that do that high-end machines, and you've got 5 who do the standard machines. You want to make sure that you have appropriate capacity for both types of machines, and you don't want to have the technicians cross over. You don't want your high-end guys working on the standard machines. You want them all focused in their particular niche markets so that they are most efficient and you guys are making the most money. So by allowing these overlapping zones, you can have a delivery zone and a service zone, and those zip codes in both those 2 zones can be identical, but when you choose that particular job belongs to, ServiceDesk is going to look at a different set of data. So this is super helpful when you're doing that guided technician selection. So if you take a job and you assign it, you pick it that it's in department delivery, then ServiceDesk is only going to show you the technicians that are assigned to that zone delivery rather than the overlapping service zone and showing you the technicians that are actually doing service repair. So this departments thing is super helpful for making sure that you are automating that assignment of jobs to the correct group of technicians. Okay, so the next thing, once you have all that information, you've got all those routes optimized and ready to go. And Bill, just to touch on that. So basically when we're looking, let me go back here real quick. This grasshopper part, when you're doing the whole route optimization, just how it looks at the guaranteed first call, it also looks at and accounts for specific time frames. So if you have specified a job that it is going to be at 11:30 or that it is going to be between 2 and 4 o'clock, and that is put into that appointment versus an all-day appointment, then the whole roster optimization accounts for that, and it keeps that particular job in its spot as it fluctuates everything else around it. Hopefully that answers your question. And if not, we can do some like one-on-one demonstrations with you for that. Okay, so, all right. So call management, again, is a huge, broad thing. And so I don't want to talk about dispatching and how the information gets to the technicians, because talking about SD Mobile and how that works is a whole nother hour-long conversation. But basically, if you're not using SD Mobile, then from your dispatch map, you have a bunch of options to get routes to your technicians. You can send them via email. You can send them via text message. You can do a literal regular printout and hand them a piece of paper. There's a lot of ways for you to be able to get the information to the technicians. But after the information is to the technicians, what's the thing you're going to handle next? Well, you need to know the status. So what is going on with these particular jobs, and how can I make sure that I stay on top of what is going on with them? And so I just briefly wanted to touch on WIP alerts, first of all. So WIP alerts are little notices that you get in your call sheets. They can be really annoying, but so I always recommend don't turn them on until you feel like you're really using ServiceDesk the way it's intended. So if you're just getting started, do not turn these on. If you feel like you got a good handle on how you're managing things, then turn these on. And the reason why is because this is how the things that have slipped through the cracks get caught. The WIP alerts, when you're not fully using the system, you get hundreds of them, maybe not, hopefully not, but you get a lot, and they're really annoying. And eventually ServiceDesk will be like, hey, we gave you a whole bunch of these things. We're not going to bug you anymore about it. And that is not very useful. However, when you're totally on top of everything and you've got your systems in place and you feel like you're managing things really well, and then you get one of these WIP alerts, you get the WIP alert because you have truly missed something. So for example, this is a WIP alert regarding a dispatch to technician. So we dispatched this job to the technician and we didn't get any feedback from him. We didn't get a post-visit report. We didn't get a part order. We have no information on this particular job other than the fact that we dispatched it to the technician. So this little reminder is, hey, it looks like, let's see, it looks like the technician who went out to this job didn't perform it, or he didn't do something. So that's a like big red flag to you that you need to get in contact with that technician and find out where his post-visit report is. And did he actually go to this job? And is this no big deal, or do we have a major cleanup to do with this customer that we missed? So WIP alerts are super important, and they're very handy for keeping you on top of things. And then the other thing that we're going to talk about, and then we'll see what I can do to answer any additional questions, is the jobs perusal form. So the jobs perusal form is found at Shift F7, I believe. Yeah, Shift F7. And so you've got your jobs in F7. There's a lot of them. And you're like, okay, I need to know where I'm at on these particular things. I've got these great tools within ServiceDesk for managing how I'm getting my information out and for making these schedules, but how am I confirming where I'm at on this stuff? Well, the jobs perusal form has these really great filters that you can go into. So you can choose to, for example, okay, show me the jobs that are pending authorization. So you click on this pending authorization radio button. It shows you all the jobs that are pending authorization. So whether or not that's authorization from the manufacturer, authorization from the landlord, authorization from the customer themselves, whether or not they want you to go ahead and proceed, or whoever that is, you'll see all those jobs that are in pending authorization status. But then you can further filter them by all these things here on the right. So if you want to see things that you're waiting for authorization from LG for, then you can click on pending authorization. And then over here under applicable high volume client, you would choose LG from this drop-down list. So it allows you to take this big stack of jobs that you have that are in this assorted statuses and really filter them down into just this narrow thing that you want to handle. So you want to go ahead and handle the ones that you need LG to give you authorization for. So you take this list of say 100 jobs and you filter it down to 7. You reach out to LG, you get those 7 handled. You mark them appropriately, and then you can go back into this filter and you can show the next set of things that need to be done. This is super great for parts, for, again, making sure that you're hitting your performance metrics so that you get, more jobs or bonuses, or if you're negotiating service fees. This is really the great tool that you need for keeping track of where you're at on particular jobs. Better filtering custom date ranges. I agree. That would be nice too, Justin, to be able to even make this more powerful. Although it's probably helpful to know that when you do this filter, that whatever is the oldest is going to be on the left. So you're going to have that slider bar. So if you slide the slider bar all the way to the left, then you'll be whatever job is the oldest in that particular status. So it's probably where you want to usually start with, okay, which things are the most out of pocket, so to speak. Or maybe you want to start on the other side and you want to be like, okay, well, just show me the ones that are on the edge of being out of pocket. You might use using custom date ranges. So maybe the quantity of days since last note might be helpful for that. But I can definitely see wanting to be able to be like, okay, well, show me like the technicians that are in a particular zone. So let's say you want to look at those 2 technicians that are in your high-end zone. So you want to look at David and you want to look at Steve. So just show me David and Steve's jobs. So I can see why that might be beneficial. So, all right. Well, that, my friends, is all that I have. I know that's a lot of information, and I feel like when Glade made this particular, let's see, how do I stop this screen share? Oh, there it is. Stop share. Okay. When Glade was like, okay, you're going to talk about this. And I'm like, okay, you realize that when I do this class in person, that this particular subject that you chose is like the first 3 hours of the class.
Well, there's always next time. We can
well,
always.
So I was gonna say that a lot of what we talked about today, I feel like can use a very one-on-one, not one-on-one individual person, but like we could literally spend an hour just talking about like how to set up and utilize the Grasshopper, or how to do the settings for the SD mobile setup and whatnot. So I guess if any of you guys want any of that particular specific stuff, then provide the feedback either directly to Glade or to Sarah.
So I was just going to say, if anyone has suggestions, like if they want specific things to be discussed, or webinars on specific things, they can definitely send us an email, reach out to Glade, reach out to you, or their contact at Rossware. And we're more than happy to help facilitate and accommodate all those requests. Well, most of them anyway.
Definitely.
So, well, thank you so much, Karie, for your time. And we thank everyone else for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon.
All right. You guys have a great
day. Thank you. Yep. Bye.
All right. Bye.